video we were discussing about air passage pathway, and in this video we are going to discuss about the process of breathing, and we've also discussed breathing in the part 1 of this chapter. So if you want to get some information about it, you can check that video. Process of breathing में we have basically two processes of breathing. The first one is inhalation. It is when you inhale oxygen, and the second one is exhalation, and that's when you exhale carbon dioxide. तो बेसिकली जो इनहेलेशन है, inhalation, the rib cage and the lungs, you know what, the movement of the rib cage and lungs is outward and upward. Whenever you breathe in oxygen, your lungs will move outward and upward. Whereas when you exhale out carbon dioxide from your body, then your rib cage and lungs will move downward and inward. Fine. अभी inhale करते हो आप जब oxygen, so your lungs move outward and they move upward. And when you exhale out carbon dioxide, your lungs move downward and they move inward. But when we talk about one more thing, like in inhalation we're taking I, and in exhalation we're taking E. Whenever we're talking about inhalation, so your intercostal muscle, if you don't know what is intercostal muscle, you shouldn't worry because we are going to study it right now. Your intercostal muscle and the diaphragm, I told you what's diaphragm in the part 1. If you still don't know it, we'll do that again. Both of these things will contract. Whereas in exhalation, both of these things, like your intercostal muscle and diaphragm, will relax. Now, basically, the intercostal muscle and the diaphragm. Intercostal muscle is basically a muscle which is present between ribs and lungs. Your intercostal muscle. Whereas when you talk about diaphragm, then for example, these are your lungs. Like I told you yesterday that this is the trachea, the windpipe, this one. These are the bronchus, and then you have bronchioles and all of that. But for example, these are the lungs, alright? So basically, these lungs have a dome-shaped muscle beneath them. That muscle is something in this way, and that is known as diaphragm. It is a dome-shaped muscle which is present beneath your lungs. So basically, whenever you inhale oxygen, this becomes flat, and whenever you exhale oxygen, this comes in its shaped, in its dome shaped. And if you still don't understand it, then for example, this is a human body. So basically, this part of your body is known as thorax, or you can even say it thoracic cavity. And this part of your body is known as abdomen. You can say it abdominal cavity, by the way. So basically, the diaphragm is present between both of them. It's present something here. You have your diaphragm, which gets straight when you inhale oxygen, and it comes in its shape when you exhale carbon dioxide. I hope that makes sense. What happens in your body is, like, if this is the pulmonary artery, this pulmonary artery brings deoxygenated blood from the body. It goes into capillaries and alveoli. For example, these are capillaries, the smallest tubes, You have alveoli here. I told that alveoli is surrounded by capillaries, right? And here you have your pulmonary vein, which takes the oxygenated blood from the body. So basically, what happens is that oxygen and comes in your alveoli, as we discussed earlier in the previous videos. Oxygen comes in your alveoli, and it is where gaseous exchange occurs. The body brings deoxygenated blood. It gets diffused with oxygen here, and then what happens is that the blood becomes oxygenated, and then the pulmonary vein carries blood throughout the whole body. Then from the capillaries bring deoxygenated blood from the body. All right, so this was just a basic thing that you had to know. Then our next thing that we're going to study is artificial ventilation. I told there was ventilation in the very first video. I said that ventilation is a process by which you take in oxygen and take out carbon dioxide, but it includes the physical occurrence of physical changes in the lungs and the diaphragm, right? So artificial ventilation में होता क्या है? There's a tube inserted. For example, there's a tube inserted in your mouth, and for example, this is your trachea. This is the windpipe. The tube is inserted in your mouth and it swells at this place of your trachea so that any harmful gases do not, enter your trachea. This tube gets swells up here, तो यहाँ से कुछ जा ही नहीं पाएगा आगे. तो because to avoid any unhealthy air to go inside your trachea, the tube swells up here. Whenever you see patients who are on ventilator, तो उनके साथ artificial उनके लिए ऑक्सीजन की कमी हो जाती है, तो they insert a tube inside their mouth and वो सारे प्रोसेस ऐसे होता है. एंड वहाँ पे फिर नीचे जो लगा हुआ होता है, इट्स बॉक्स लाइक स्ट्रक्चर जहाँ पे पार्टीशंस हुई भी होती हैं, लाइक यहाँ से पेशेंट की बॉडी में ऑक्सीजन जा रहा होता है, एंड देन यहाँ से अब कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड इज गेटिंग रिलीज्ड. सही है. एक और चीज़ है which is known as oxygen depth. उसमें बेसिकली क्या होता है, दिस इज द अमाउंट ऑफ ऑक्सीजन required to the body after exercise. You see, people are usually, very tired after exercise, so oxygen gets decreased in them, you can say. So that is the amount of oxygen which is required after exercise. Where we have anaerobic respiration. You might know what is anaerobic respiration. It is a very basic topic. Respiration which do not involve oxygen is known as anaerobic respiration, right? In anaerobic respiration, glucose in your body gets break down into lactic acid, and then with lactic acid it breaks down into carbon dioxide and energy in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. All right. फिर यू माइट बी थिंकिंग कि बॉडी के अंदर सारा ग्लूकोज खत्म हो जाता है, तो नो, देयर इज सम ग्लूकोज इन योर बॉडी विच इज स्टोर्ड इन योर लिवर, और वो लिवर में इन द फॉर्म ऑफ ग्लाइकोजन स्टोर किया जाता है. All right, this was all about our today's video.